Hello. Okay, so I think I've made this video a couple times now, but usually I get too emotional, so I can't really bring my thoughts around like good enough. And it also kind of sounds like I'm mad at the devs, which I'm not. The reason I want to make this video is Sleen's kind of in the gutter right now. Like Sleen was like gutted, like stabbed, and like thrown in a ditch and left to die. So, oh my god, I love thinking about it like that. But yeah, anyways, yeah, I think overall he's gotten 5 nerfs since his first one, and then he hasn't really gotten like anything in return for it. So I'm gonna explain what I think I should be reverted, what I think should be changed. I just explain overall why I think Sleen isn't in a good spot right now, because I really think he is the worst ranged in the game at this like current moment. So yeah, I'll split this up into his different abilities, how every ability is doing right now, and we'll see where we go from there. Okay, I really hope you enjoy the video. Again, this isn't meant to attack the devs or anything. It's more of a criticization of the balance of the game right now. So, yeah, please enjoy. Okay, let's go in the order of M1, M2, Q, E, passive, and ult. That sounds pretty cool, right? That sounds pretty cool. That sounds pretty cool. Okay, so M1, right? The M1 is fine where it is right now, but I think because of the passive changes, this one also needs some changes. And I'm gonna get into his design and like game design a little bit here. So M1, right? It can deal from 3 to 20 damage within a 1-second charge rate, which is pretty cool. Like, I like that. That's pretty cool, right? Like 0.3 seconds would be a 3 damage charge. 0.5 would be 5 damage. Wait, no, that's not how that works. Because it's 0.3 to 1 second, so 0.1 to 1 to 20. Yeah, that's definitely not how that works. I don't exactly know how the calculations are done. I'm a little bit tired. I just woke up. That's why I'm doing this right now, because I'm not very angry. But okay, so basically it has a slightly long charge time. I got the 0.3 to 1 second from the wiki. Oh, goodness. Anyways, awesome, right? So cool, so amazing. We love M1 because it's one of his only good abilities. M1, if you're hovering during the charge up time of the move, it doubles how fast it charges, so it effectively doubles your damage on the move, which I think is really, really cool. Or it gives it a 50% boost. I don't know if that means double or not. I think it does. I don't know. The wiki is kind of weird, and I don't know how the calculation's done in game, but yeah, anyways, that's besides the point. It does more damage if you start hovering during it. So the way it works as well is that if you're charging it up, you get 25 slow, which was cool until the passive nerf happened, where he only gets his passive for 4 seconds per ability used. And then it has to be on hit. And I'll get onto the on hit thing last, because that's the most annoying thing, which I didn't really like. So before the passive nerfs, what you could do as Sleen was you would use up your abilities and then be super fast, so you could hover shoot like really well and be pretty evasive, right? He was an evasive character, he was supposed to be annoying. That was one of the few ways he could go on a front line, because he would have his passive to back him up while he's hover shooting. I don't think covering was that powerful back then, even with the E things, because of the like, even though his air stall was good, he did suffer 25% slow while he was airwalking. If he used any of his abilities in the air, he would be stuck, you know, and he was on the same, like, Y-axis the entire time. So I don't think it was, like, for any range to hit him, I don't think it was that difficult. If you're talking about melee, that's a bit controversial. I'll try to get to that at the end, and what I think about that. No, I'll do it at the E section, okay? Yeah, so his M1 was good because you could still move during it, even if it gave you a slow. And with his passive, his old passive, you could move pretty fast during it, so you were actually evasive. So you could frontline. You could do a lot of damage in the front line. It was a little bit easier to aim rather than being in the total back. It was pretty cool, right? But with the passive changes now, and the changes to his air stall, it's much harder to get that same value. And it really sucks, because now he's almost never usually at 60% speed, and even if he is, it's usually only for maybe 1 second, sometimes 2. Because it takes 2 seconds to set up 40% speed with Q and M2, which is a little bit annoying, but we'll get there eventually. So now you're not as evasive in the air, because if you're shooting in the air, you're gonna have minus 25%. You're gonna have minus 25% slow, which isn't really cool, and you're still always on the same y-axis. So it's really easy it's much easier, it's not really easy, but it's much easier for the range to hit you while you're in the air now. You're not as evasive as you were, which is a little bit annoying, I would say. Overall, I don't think M1's that bad. It doesn't need any changes. It's mostly just affected by the changes to the haste, which we'll get to a little bit later. Okay, but let's get on to M2, which I have a lot to say about this, so get ready. Oh, goodness, I'm tired. Okay. This is like right? Okay, hopefully this is the front, because that increases the quality of the mic. Okay, let's talk about M2 for a second. M2 had 2 major nerfs to it. First of all, M2, damage 30. Which, yeah, sure. It did a lot of damage, but then they also took off the root. Okay, no, but so his damage was nerfed for M2 to 30, which is like... that's like 25% of his damage gone, right? But then they also take away root, which... that takes away most of his quote-unquote guaranteed combos. And I'm gonna speak on why I think the damage nerf was okay, but I genuinely think that the point that they took away his root was the point that he kind of, like, really lost everything, right? Because, of course, he was extremely good before. He could deal 80 burst damage. That was not okay. But I don't think that it was... I don't think it's as bad as people, like, thought. Okay, so obviously, Selene, it's root. I think because it was root, it had a lot more counterplay to it, and I think that people just didn't realize it, because root doesn't take away your abilities. It doesn't, so you can use any movement ability after you're rooted. His M2 is extremely telegraphed. He stays in the air for a whole second, so you can see that he's going to shoot you for his whole second, and then after that, it takes another full second for him to combo into M2, or his finisher, which I'll get to a little bit later. But it takes him a full second to... it takes him 2 whole seconds to, like, combo it together, which is reactable for anyone. No matter who you are, you can react for 2 seconds. It was the most reactable thing in the game, I believe. Second only to, like, Hyper Laser ult and maybe Hyper M1, but even then, Hyper M1's a whole thing. So his M2 combos were super reactable, right? Which I think was good, because then you could react with an ability to get you out of the situation. Something like Sword Q, Sword E could get you out of the situation. It would give you a big burst movement, it would mix up the sling, If the sling was really, really good, well, then they still got it from a flick, which I think is good game design. It gives you a risk reward of, should I use my ability to get out of this? Which ability should I use? It creates mind games. I think it's really cool. It's split-second decision making, which was really fun, in my opinion. It may not have been fun for other people, which may have been why they nerfed it there. But yeah, I thought it was relatively fun to do. Because almost every character, since they have a movement ability in this game, they had some way to get out. Skate, offboard, he had Q. Biographed, he had E. He still has E. If I said had instead of has. I'm just kind of bad with wording sometimes. Anyways, yeah, no, but Biographed has E. Sword has E and Q. And M2, since you can stack moves with Sword, you could M2 immediately at the slingshot who's trying to kill you, and then Q and E out of there. And you wouldn't get much, you'd get some damage out of it too. Some cool counterplay. Of course, you'd have to know the matchup completely, but let's keep going through the characters. Katana was unaffected by the root since his M1 just moves him forward forcefully, so he doesn't get, like, nothing matters for it. The only one who really cared about it was Banhammer, but even then, Banhammer's a tank. He didn't take the damage. It doesn't matter. And another thing with Katana was that he could key you out of the air if you ever try to follow up with a combo. Like, he wouldn't get surprised by it, and it's really easy to hit. So you'd have your haste to get out, but that's about it. It's like it's the Katana matchup, which I'll talk about later, which has been ruthlessly now stinged toward in Katana's favor because of the sling nerfs. But anyways, I'll get to that a little bit later. For Hyper, he didn't have much to get out of it, which was fine because Sling and Hyper were kind of on the same ground at that point. Like, you could still kill Hypers as Sling. It was pretty cool. And since Hyper did some of the best damage in the game, and he still does, he could get headshots off you if you tried to combo him because you were stuck in the air. Or he could use his M2, M1 combo on you. Like, there was a bunch of stuff he could do. If he had E, he also has both of his haste abilities, so if he used it beforehand, he could try to mix you up, hide behind walls, he could do a bunch of stuff. Like, M2 was a powerful ability, but it wasn't the most powerful ability in the game, like, by a long shot. Coil didn't exist for this, but he has some of the best movement in the game right now. He also has Healing E. He has, like, 5 get-out-of-jail-free options, which I think Coil's a little bit weird, but let's move on to the ranged agains. So Hyper had that. I mean Sleen. What the hell? Sleen had his E ability to get out of pretty much any situation. I'm pretty sure he could also still airwalk while he was rooted. So, like, if he was above the ground, he had Q to put him up a little bit. It would give him a little bit of something. It was, like, really cool. The Sleen v Sleen matchup had some stuff between it you could do. It was really fun. Rocket could always move himself back with M2, which a lot of people don't know this, but, like, Rocket M2, if a Sling's aiming at you, that weird direction he goes at, and that weird, like, velocity, it screws me up so much. I don't know if this is for any other Slings, but it really does screw me up when he uses M2, and he just, like, falls back, and I miss my shot completely. I'm like, what the fuck? He also had Q to get him in the air. It's much harder to aim on the X-axis than it is the Y-axis. So it was really cool for him to just get out of there if he really needed to. And then for Shuri, Shuri used to have a teleport, so you could teleport out of the situation if you needed to, which was stupid. Shuri teleport must have been the most stupid and, holy shit, the most annoying ability in that game. Maybe tied for Sling E and, like, maybe tied with Sling E and his, like, air stall, but we'll get onto that later and why I think that isn't even, like, comparable, because Shuri E was just the most annoying thing in the game. It was a free get out of jail option on anywhere in the map, which I think was disgusting. And then if you broke it, it would hit you, and, like, it was a whole thing. That was a terrible time. And then he also has Q, which is a pretty good get out of jail free option. Of course, if he timed it wrong with your M2 and Q combo, he wouldn't be able to get out of it because how much damage it does. But if he was like at any point, like in the animation, he just got out of jail for free because it's almost impossible to like hit that while he's flying. It's just too difficult. So there was a little bit of counterplay on both sides for that, which I think was pretty cool. I like the Selene versus Sherry matchup a lot. I had some pretty cool games with Coolio. Yeah, and then we get to the supports who have a bunch of stuff already. They had a bunch of stuff back then as well. Like if you hit E with subspace, even if you hit M2 while he's in his little like E phase ability, even if you hit him while he's in it, he still doesn't get stunned. So you had to be very like precise. You had to track cooldowns to make sure that they couldn't get out of it. Medkit had Q, and if they read you correctly, they could like cleanse the E. Not the E. They could cleanse the root from M2 with E, which was a really cool thing I figured out you could do. Some other stuff. You never really want to do it against Vine Staff because since Vine Staff has so much just damage, if you're just standing still, like it's disgusting. It's basically Scythe, but like off-brand Scythe. You just didn't want to do it against them because you would have to stand still and then you would get hit by so much. You'd take like 40 damage while you're doing it. It was like really, really bad. So you'd have to sneak up on them and hope they didn't react within the 1 second it took to take off your E. I mean, take off your Q. Sorry. I'm getting a little bit of these mixed up. But I thought it was really fun. I thought it was really cool. How they had, instead of a movement counterplay, they had a damage counterplay they could do. And then you have, what else did you have? Boombox. You see, Boombox was one of the only characters actually hard countered by Selene. But at this point, Boombox was hard meta, so it was like really nice to have a pick that could take care of Boombox relatively easily. Since Selene was blessed with some of the best air stall in the game, Boombox could never really hit him. He was never a big priority. And since Selene could move high into the air, he could take off some damage off Boombox because his barrier was like pretty annoying to get past. So since you were above him, he could never point his barrier upward. It was great. You had your M2, which went through Boombox barrier. You had Q, which was like pretty good. And you had E, in case you didn't have M2 or Q to stand on. So you could get above his barrier and get some M1s off on him. I think he was his only hard counter at that point. I thought he was like a really good pickup against Boombox. So it was one of the only ways to deal with him at that time, which was pretty cool. Of course, Boombox now is Elite Gutter, and I'm so sorry, Boombox mains, you really didn't deserve it. It just kind of sucks for all Boombox mains. I kind of feel bad for all of them, because he has, like, nothing now. There's really no reason to pick him over, like, Vine Staff, or fucking Medkit. Or even Coil, who has haste and healing built into his kit. But that's a story for another day. Let's get on with it. And then you have, Vine Sub, and Boombox. And then you have Coil, who I talked a little bit about before. He wasn't alive during this. He was, like, still a baby. But, yeah, he wasn't alive during M2 route. So I can't explicitly say what would happen, but I can tell you that with everything that Coil has, I think he wouldn't be affected by it at all. I don't think he would have been affected by M2 route at all, because M2 for his speed mode, M2 for Q mode, along with his E for Q mode, so you could just move up and down. So even if you were really good at flicking, he could just come down immediately. Fucking E in support mode, which I think is a dumb ability and needs. I genuinely think that the damage reduction for that ability needs to be nerfed. Like, genuinely. Because 75 is just way too much. He already gets passive regen in that, like, place, and since there's no burst damage in this game, besides, like, hyper besides like, since there's not really a lot of burst damage in this game besides like Hyper M1 headshot and Scythe E and Scythe Q, like there's not really a good thing. Like it just it just like dominates because everything gets set to like 1 damage. And even those abilities get set to 10 damage. Like it's that ability needs to be desperately changed. I think it should be 50 reduction, but that's my thoughts on Coil. Whatever. Anyways, yeah. But I genuinely don't think M2 was that bad. There was counterplay for almost every single character. And the only one who didn't have counterplay for it, which was Banhammer, didn't need counterplay for it because he's a tank. He's already supposed to absorb pretty much every hit in the game. And he was the worst character at that point anyway, so it didn't, like, he already just needed buffs in general. But yeah, I don't think that you needed to get rid of Root. There was, like, a lot of counterplay to it, and if people played their cards smartly, they could not take 80 burst damage. If they played smartly and well against the Slain, they didn't have to take 80 burst damage. Like, which, like, there's some arguments against this, obviously. Like, it did too much damage, which sure, but as we said before, there's a lot of counterplay to it. It only roots. Hell, the medkit can burst heal for 40 HP at this point. Like, medkit could also just Q them and get them out of jail for free. Just tank a hit with Boombox barrier if you really need to. And this is a team game. Your team is supposed to be supporting you. So while he's in the air doing this combo for 2 seconds, like, I genuinely think the team should be going after him. Because it's when he's most vulnerable. Besides now, when his E is off, like, cooldown. Which I'm going to get to E in a little bit because he really irritated me with what I found out about it. But we'll get there when we get there. Yeah, but anyways, I don't think M2 is that bad. One thing I will say is that 40 damage and Root can exist in the same universe. If you're gonna buff his damage because you think the Root is like it's a little bit too much, that's fine, but just bring the damage back at least. Yeah, but if you're thinking of bringing both of them back, just don't do it because they can't exist together. It just does like, even though I've said there's counterplay to it, it still just does too much damage for what it's worth. Sure, you stand there for 2 seconds and you use 2 cooldowns. And you're basically just a sitting duck for a little bit, but, like, 80 damage is a lot. That's more than any other character in the game does, even if it's a little bit, like, inconsistent with Root. It still does just too much, and I don't think it can be in the game. Like, a 70 damage combo is, hell, even, like, if you brought the Root back, even making it 25 damage. Like, honestly, I think that might be where you have to go with that. Like, there are some points where the Root is unhealthy, and, like, sure, but I'd rather have the Root and just, like, nerf the damage. Like, just have the Root and nerf the damage, because Root was fun to play around. I like the interactions it gave, but I understand that some people might find annoying, so, like, yeah. I've ranted a little bit about this. You guys decide on what you think about it. I think that Root was fun. It was a cool ability to have, and it created a lot of mind games and counterplay with it. A lot of cool interactions that I feel were just kind of stolen. But of course there's the other side, which thought it did way too much burst damage. It shouldn't be in the game, which is absolutely fair in my opinion. That's also a fair argument to make. I don't quite know what would be the correct decision. I'm not entirely with, like, the balancing of this game. I'm not completely a pro player. I went to 2 tournaments, but then I did take that, like, 2-month-long break, so yeah, whatever. Sorry, this portion's getting too long. I need to quit right now. So, we'll get to Q here in a minute, which a lot of people complain about, but I don't see what's wrong with it. So let's get to Q. Okay, let's get on to Q. I feel like a lot of people complain about this ability because they don't understand what it was used for and what it was made for. So, a lot of people, I feel, didn't play Selena in the quote-unquote correct way, and there's a lot of bias on my part here. And I want you guys to keep into account that I am very biased with my opinion here. I am a Sleen main. I don't like how he plays anymore. With the changes they made, it completely took away like my personal play style. So there is a lot of bias in this, if you couldn't tell. So I want you guys to keep that in mind. Keep it with a grain of salt that there is personal bias in here. There's always personal bias in every opinion, but there's still a lot of personal bias here because the way I played Sleen was a little bit different from how others played him, so I'll tell you. So a lot of people thought that Sleen should be played as a midliner, or should play with the supports kind of in the backline, you know? He did decent damage, and what Q did was, since Q is a pretty, like, is a pretty close ranged ability, people didn't think it fit with his kit since they played him in the midline and kind of like backline, right? Or as like a flanker. But I think it fits with his kit really well. At least it did, right? Right now, it's just used as burst damage when you're up close to the enemy, and a sort of kiting tool, like a pseudo kiting tool. But with the way you play Sleen now, you can't really play him in the front line too much unless you're an open lobbyist. You have to play him much more passively. You have to play, like, there's not a lot of room for him to get on the point and conquer. In Annihilate, he's not too bad, but, you know, he still plays the midline, and in Annihilate maps especially, usually they aren't too big, so there's not a lot of places for him to run, right? Like, take... but like the personal way I used to play him was I used to play him like a frontliner. Like, if you saw my old videos, you'd see him like basically always on point, always like hovering above the fight, trying to take people out. That's how I personally played. I always played him as a frontliner. I always thought he was best as a frontliner because of his insane ability to like not get hit with his air stall. And his, basically everything, yeah, his basically everything. He was just great for, being a frontliner. If you, because if you played him in mid or backline, if you ever M2 somebody, you would never get full damage off the Q, but if you played him in the front line, always hovering above the enemy, when you didn't have, hover, if you M2'd and Q'd them, it was great because they took like a clean 80 damage, and you could get out of there with your haste. All of those things together made him like extremely overtuned, obviously. He was pretty overtuned before the nerfs, but now I feel like he's kind of like still kind of dead in the ditch. But I still think he has a great ability. I honestly don't think it's that bad. It's like kind of a get off me tool, but since it's a close range ability and you stand still for 1 second, the only problem I see with it is that people close in like way too fast. People have figured out that they have movement abilities. They close in way too fast now. Like Q gets most of its like damage at the in between mid and close range. Like you don't want to be as close as a sword, but you don't want to be as like midlined as a like a medkit might be, right? So because if they're too midlined, then like if they're just a little bit too far away from you, you're never gonna get like the full thing. You're gonna get like 24 damage from it. And if they're too close, you have like a way higher chance of missing it and dealing no damage completely. So you always gotta find that like good positioning sweet spot to try and get it, which I think is fun for the ability. It challenges your positioning and your spatial awareness. It challenges who to use it against based on what abilities they have. I think it's really cool. But since there's no M2 to root them anymore, it's much harder to get off, and people just don't like it as much, I guess, for that reason, because it's more hard to get off. But I don't think it's that bad of an ability if you play him as a frontliner. You can't play him as a frontliner anymore very much, unless you're in opens, which kind of sucks, but yeah. I never thought it was a terrible ability. I don't really think it needs any changes. I think if you change the other parts of his kit, it just gets better, like, by itself. Like, if you change his haste, then he has more get out of jail options, which lets you push in more as a frontliner. If you changed his E, he would be able to hover more. He'd be able to air stall for longer. It would let you, like, go in and get out better, right? If you change his M2, back to root, it would make it easier to get like Q off. It would be much more fun. Or if you changed M2's damage, kept the slow, which would be fine. You wouldn't. I think Q would become obsolete if you didn't add the root back and just like made it 40 damage, because at that point then you're like only gonna play him as a frontliner. I mean, not a frontliner, as a midliner or backliner, and then you're never really gonna get all your things from Q that you could get. Like, you won't get the 40 damage from it anymore. The only, like, one of the pretty good things about it, though, is that it's an easy way to get off your haste, which has been, like, kind of dead for a little bit in the water now. It kind of sucks, but yeah, I don't think he's in a bad spot. I think it doesn't really need any changes. I think it's good. Genuinely. Yeah, I think it's good. Okay, let's get on to E now, and I'm gonna be a bit controversial with this. Oh goodness. Okay, so let me talk about E a little bit. So E, right? E used to be Slingshot's main way of getting in and out of team fights, because personal experience here, since I played him as a frontliner, he was easy to get in with E. You could hover above them, start shooting them, and by the time you touch the ground, it'd be pretty much off cooldown at that point, so if you were being pressured too much, you could E out of there and use your haste to get out. This was obviously too powerful, but I think it got too hard nerfed, guys. Okay, just listen to me for a second. So first of all, air stall, annoying, right? But I don't think it was, like, that bad. Okay, a bunch of different characters that counter him. C fucking hyper. C literally, like, Scythe could counter him with her Q if he was standing still. It's really easy for her. C Sword as a melee who could counter, C Biographed as a melee that could counter him as well. Like, there were people that could counter him, and it's a team game, right? You're not gonna have 5 melees on the same team, hopefully. God, I hope not. That would be terrible. But oh my god. Yeah, anyways, yeah, like, the only support who was, like, hard countered by it was Boombox. And I'd say the worst part about it, since it is a team game, it took your attention away from the other characters, and you'd have to switch up your x-axes up and down, right? Which, that's a fair argument, sure. That's, like, a sort of fair argument I can see against it, but, like, I genuinely don't think it was that bad. Like, having to divert your attention away from the team fight is basically what Shuri does. It's basically what Scythe does. It's basically what any flank character does. Hell, Biographed and Skateboard do that, like, 10 times better than him, I believe so. I don't think Skateboard does it better that much. No, he can still do it pretty well, but you have to be, like, 10 times better at the game than everybody else to get, like, that much value out of Skateboard. Poor Skateboard, he deserves some buffs. He got that cool one. Anyways, I'm getting off track here. Yeah, anyways, I'm getting off track. Yeah, but I don't think it was as bad as some of the other stuff in the game, like, Skateboard going Mach 5, or fucking Shuri, who was, oh my god, I still have trauma, but, yeah, now both of those characters are more balanced, but, so it gives Celine, like, more of a way to, and, like, I guess Celine could also, like, distract them the same way that Shuri distracted them, but he could do it from the front line, which I don't know if that's better or worse, honestly. But it sure is something. It sure is something, guys. Sure was something he had. But with the E-nerfs, like, I hate the E-nerfs. I do. And the biggest reason I hate them, like, part of it is the secondary cooldown it has, right? But the biggest reason I hate it is because it's variable, which lowers his skill ceiling. Because with the old one, right, you'd always know when it was off cooldown if you were good at the game, because you'd have that muscle memory built up, you would understand it. So if you invested time into the character, you would get better, but now there's no muscle memory behind it. You hope it's up. You hope it's up. Or you track 2 separate cooldowns of, okay, well now you have to track, am I down on the ground? How long is Sling cooldown? 8 seconds, right? So now I have to wait 8 seconds for it to come back up. Sure, like, whatever, I guess. Whatever. Like, I don't, like, you have to track two different things, which takes away from your ability to focus on the game, and it's annoying. Like, it's just, I think that change is stupid. I'd rather have it on a hard cooldown, but the biggest problem I have with this is that it can go on cooldown for 15 seconds. That's not okay. It's a basic movement ability. It should not be on cooldown for 15 seconds. That's almost as much as Subspace Q. And I'll show a clip of it right now. Almost matching Subspace Q's stupid fucking cooldown, which, you know, it's even worse than Subspace Q, because Subspace Q, its cooldown starts as soon as it's out. Which is fucking ridiculous. This is the part of the video where I get mad and start going to my emotions. I'm gonna keep them in check here, okay? No movement ability should be on a 15-second cooldown. That's just, no. No movement ability should be able to even come close to matching Subspace Q, one of the best area control denial things in the game. Okay? No ability should. I propose it's just on a hard 11-second cooldown. Maybe 12. A hard 11 or 12-second cooldown. That way it becomes one of the it becomes a movement ability cooldown. It's hard cooldown, so you can build muscle memory for it again. And it no longer can go as long as 15 seconds, because the 15-second cooldown that I mentioned, right? That's a normal thing you do. That's a normal thing you do in game. Like sometimes it's like 14, but like it can go up to 15 with a normal amount of air stall for Sleen. Like he can air stall for 7 seconds, which is like whatever, but like it shouldn't last 15 seconds. Like it just shouldn't. You can say it's just my opinion, but I genuinely don't think any basic movement ability should be on cooldown for 15 seconds. I think it's dumb. I'm gonna stop talking about this now, otherwise I'm gonna get in my feels. I'll stop looking at this as objectively as I did, but a hard, like, 12-second cooldown wouldn't be that bad. It really wouldn't. I don't think it would be that bad. Or stop the cooldown from being fucking based on his... Or just make it 5 seconds and still based on airtime. Like, because that's way too much time. That's way too much time for a basic ability. That's way too much time for a basic movement ability. Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah. Let's move on to... Oh my god. Let's move on to his passive, which I have a lot of problems with. Okay, let's get on to Sleen's passive, which I think were hit kind of really super hard. It went from 6 active, so each separate ability gives haste, right? And these have separate timers for the haste. They can stack too, which is pretty cool. I thought that was awesome. And it was up for 6 seconds, but now it's up for 4 seconds, which I don't think that should be in the game. I think it should have been kept at 6 seconds. There was really no reason to change it, because of the E-nerfs. And if you keep the E-nerfs, he doesn't have any way to get out of a fight. Like, this was his last way to get out of a fight, by using all of his cooldowns to run away, because that's what he was good at. He was good at using all of his cooldowns and getting the hell out of there, right? And there were some characters that could stop this from happening, like, if a skateboard had good timing and good positioning, they could M2 stun him. Skateboard could take him out of the air, stun him immediately. Hell, Scythe can stun him from a long distance. Hyper can wireframe him and slow him with his Q or his M2. Like, there was a bunch of people who could, like, try to take it away, but he always had that thing to fall back on, his haste, right? And because of how his M1 works, he couldn't use his haste to get out immediately, because it would do 25%, so if he, tried to shoot while he was getting away, it wouldn't work, so he couldn't get that extra damage off, right? Because mine is 25% slow. It didn't work well with the 60% haste. But now it's 4 seconds. which now he can't get out of things as easily. He can't, which, sure, you could say, oh, it's raising his skill floor, but I don't think his skill floor should be raised. I genuinely don't. His skill floor, like, he's, okay, keep in mind, he's a beginner character, right? His skill floor is supposed to stay low. That's what it's supposed to do. You shouldn't try to make him, like, you shouldn't try to artificially raise his skill floor. Even on the wiki says, low skill floor, high skill ceiling. It's a fun character that's very versatile. That's why a lot of people played him. But now his skill floor has been increased by that, so he can't get out as easily. And it's much more difficult for him to engage, since he has to think, do I want to engage here, and will I have the resources to get out? Like, and that's a cool little mind game, but I feel like they should do that in a different way. But, like, sure, 4 seconds for it is fine, but then we get to the other change, which I just despise this change, okay? And, you know I'm decent at slaying, right? Like, I hope you guys know this, but when you make it so he has to hit his abilities to get his haste, there's no reason for that. There was simply no reason. Like, I can see a reason for at least the timing change. Like, he only has 4 seconds of haste, right? But there was no reason to change it to on hit, because at least if you're just changing the duration of the haste, like, it does artificially raise his skill floor, but, like, there's a reason for it. He had too many get out of jail options, right? But then you nerfed it to E, and it's like a whole thing. But there was no reason to make it on hit. There was genuinely none. Like, this wasn't gonna affect, like, good Sling players. This wasn't gonna affect the pro level Sling players at all. It only affects the newer players, because they don't aim as well. They're not gonna hit their M2s and Qs as much. This only affects them, and then they don't have a get out of jail option for it. Like, this only affects newer players. There was no reason for this. It was an artificial skill floor raise, which he should stay having a low skill floor, because he's a beginner character that evolves along with the player. And this change just made me so angry. There was no reason for it. There genuinely wasn't. Because if you're balancing around the pro players, right, then you nerf the duration of the haste. But there's no reason to nerf how you get the haste, right? Because they're already hitting all their shots. They're good at the game. If you're balancing around the beginner scene, you shouldn't have done this, because it's an entry-level character who evolves along with the player. Like, there was no reason for it. You just barred his level of entry for anybody who really wanted to get into him, who really wanted to get good at him, right? So I just genuinely think there was no reason for this. There was, like, simply none. Like I don't get this change. I genuinely don't. I think this change is, like, the one that needs to be reverted immediately. Not even the duration of the haste, but just how you get the haste. I really think it just needs to be reverted. Like, please. I genuinely don't think there was a reason for it. But yeah, that's my thoughts on his passive. Not his, like, double jump or anything. Although I can comment on that. I think his hover is a little bit too powerful. I don't think E should have gotten nerfed. I think hover should have gotten nerfed. I genuinely do. I know some people will get mad at me for this, but, like, if they reverted E, I think they should nerf the hover to 1 or 1.5 seconds. And there's a reason for this. The hover gives him so much leeway into what he can do. I think I have an idea for this, right? If they increase the hover, if they lowered it to a 1 second cooldown, but increased it for every hover shot you get, like, depending on the... No, if you increase the hover, because if you did it on every hover shot, then you would just spam M1 and get you forever, right? But if they did it for the abilities like M2 and Q, if you hit them, you increase your hover duration. Like, that would be pretty cool, and it's on a meter instead. So if you have, like, a full meter, you get a full second of it. For every Q or M2 you hit, you get 0.5 seconds. So if you hit them both, you get it fully back, and then you can hover again. It would be cool, right? it would increase, it would make him a little bit weird, right? Having it on a resource instead of just a set ability. But I think it would increase his skill ceiling. Skill 4 wouldn't be touched that much because a lot of newer slings don't even, hover shooting is too difficult for them. They don't understand the theme, so it wouldn't affect the lower players that much. It would affect higher players to hit their Qs and M2s. Like, if you wanted that, it would be cooler to make it work with his hover instead of his haste, because his haste was a get out of jail option for newer players. And since pro players who are going to be hitting it, it gives them another thing to worry about. It increases the skill ceiling for the character. It's cool, right? That's just a little suggestion I'm making though, like on the fly. I think it would be better to change his passive by changing his hover instead of changing his haste. And this may be a stupid one. You can tell me in the comments below. Don't take this change too seriously. Take everything else, because I've actually thought about everything else. This is just on the fly thing. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this stuff. That's my thoughts on everything. Let's get to his ultimate now. Okay, so about his ultimate. His ultimate is, I really hope this fan isn't picking up. I'm gonna turn that off. His ultimate is extremely hard to use right now. The fact that it does 50 damage and slows, and you can see through walls, even though you can see through walls and try to snipe people and like surprise them, right? It's still really hard to use because you have to lock on to them like in this exact middle, and even then they can still react with a movement ability to get out of it. It's not a consistent ultimate. Like, okay, let's see, with like let's compare it to other like finishers, right? Medkit revives your entire team, very consistent. You can, if you use it at full health, you're basically getting a free revive on basically literally everybody, and a free heal. Fine Staff, very consistent ultimate. As long as you stay within its radius, you get healed. Coil, very consistent ultimate, very big hitboxes during the transformation. And I know those are supports. The only one that isn't consistent is Boombox, because he kind of sucks like ass right now, which kind of sucks for him. But let's go on with other ones. Let's compare him to the ranged ults. Okay, Scythe, super reliable, always good. Rifle, not as good, but still does big damage and can take away an area from an enemy. Still pretty good. Shuri, pretty reliable as long as you get close to the opponent. It's a nice ability that stops all healing. It's a good ability, right? Rocket, they made it even better by letting you choose where they go, and like having them more clustered up into pairs of 3. I think you can do this up to like 5 times. Hyper Laser, it's a hit scan ability, so as long as you hit your target right, you insta-kill them. But with Slingshot, they have time to react to it. Like, you don't have the agency that the other characters do, because everything about the other characters is that you're, like, with Slingshot, you're not in control. Like, they can react to your ultimate very, very easily, and I know it pierces people, and I know it does 50 damage, and I know it's good for hitting people through walls, but they can dodge it very, very easily. It's not that difficult. Like, if you have a movement ability that comes out pretty fast, it's pretty easy to dodge, and then you're ready for it. You know where it's coming from, so you're even, like, more likely to dodge, even with the 50% slow on it, right? Since they have move abilities, like with Root, you can just get out of it. I'm pretty sure that Sword Q goes above it, but Biographed E can go anywhere to get out of it. Skateboard isn't affected by it at all, and even if they make a misturn, they can immediately land 80. Like, it doesn't matter to them. Katana, Banhammer, Medkit, and Vine are the ones most affected by it, but Vine has self-sustain. It's kind of good for clearing out her plants, I guess, but Vine has self-sustain, like 100 regeneration, so it doesn't matter very much with her. Medkit can E himself and Q out of there if he really needs to. Coil is Coil, the best movement in the game right now. In my opinion, he has the best movement in the game. Like, all of the like, if you're playing Hyper Laser, you can dodge it like even without any movement abilities, if you're ready for it, you can dodge it. The only time you can't dodge it is if he's, like, standing still aiming. And then it's good for killing him, but he got buffed to 200 HP, so you can't even waste your entire ult on him and kill him anymore. Like, Scythe can just get out of it with her E, and if not, then she can try to use her knockback while she's in rifle form. But even then, you only get one shot off her while she's in rifle form, then she immediately switches to Scythe and starts to dodge them with her E's and Q's. Shuri just gets speed for existing, so he can just move out of it easily. Rocket is one of the few people that can't really get out of it instantly, but he can mix up his air movement with his E and Q, and then he has rocket jump as well, and then they just have to decide, do I want to get hit by this ultimate, or do I want to get hit by myself for like 10 damage, and then they get hit by themselves and then escape. Like, his ultimate isn't very good right now. It's never been good. It was more bearable with the buffs it got, like last year, with see-through walls, but it's really not that good right now. And it expires after like 20 seconds too, which, like, sure, whatever. I'm not getting anybody in it anyways. It's mostly just used to escape from people at this point because it gives you 100% haste. like at this point, you just use it to escape from people, and it's a little bit annoying because you barely do any damage with it against semi-competent players, again. Oh, goodness. Yeah, I have some problems with the ultimate, but it's still not that bad. I mean, it is a finisher. But usually for Slingshot, you're barely ever using your finisher because you don't really need it. It's not like, yeah, you don't really need it. Yeah, that's it for the finisher. I'm gonna tell you what I think about Sling's balance. What I think should be changed. Take this all with a pinch of salt because I'm not developing the game. I don't know what they're thinking. I also don't know that much about the meta right now. All I know is that Sling does not feel good. He hasn't felt good for a little bit, and I play Sling semi-regularly, so hopefully I have slightly good ideas, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, but I'll say what I'll change, what I would change about him, and then I'll go on to his matchups with people, and his matchup with different fighters, and then why they're not very good. Okay, so first off, what I would change about him. Okay, so what would I change about Sling? I would give him, at most, 2 buffs. First of all, M2 damage and root cannot exist together. I would just give his root back, and keep the damage at 30, maybe even nerf it to 25 if it's too much at 30. The root was really good. It really helped him out, and there were mind games around it. You could still play around it. I don't think it was that bad, like, genuinely. And the second thing I would change is his haste, because it's just so annoying. Like, I can live with, like, I don't think a 15-second E is good, but his haste is just so bad right now. Like, his haste is just so bad right now, and there's no reason for it. There's no reason his haste passive needs to be that weird. Yeah, just revert haste changes, please. Like, there was no reason for it. If you're asking me, my I think that's realistic. I think that's realistic enough. Like, those 2 buffs are realistic enough, and they can be implemented. Aiden said that E really didn't need changes, which is like, whatever, I guess, sure, why not? But dream changes, I don't know how well these would go about. I don't know how much this would change him. But it would be like, M2 root back. E gets changed to a hard cooldown of 12 seconds, because being able to put it on a 15-second cooldown is way too much. What else? Haste gets reverted, and it's now 5 seconds instead of 4. And then one other thing I want to put out there is for air stall, since it's like pretty annoying. Just a little thought I had was changing M2 and Q to 0.5 seconds instead of 1. And then changing E to like a 10-second cooldown. I think that'd be pretty cool, because instead of putting it up for like, or like putting E on a 5-second cooldown when they hit the ground or something like that, because then like, I don't think E is the problem for... I don't think E is the problem for air stall. It's his hover and his 2 abilities, which keep him suspended in the air for a period of time. I think those are the biggest things. Nerfing E just kind of nerfed his movement in general, which was really annoying. And it's on an 8-second cooldown. Like, it's a whole thing. Yeah. It's literally like at 2 a.m. So I'm sorry if I didn't get my points across very well, but yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna go talk about his matchups with other characters and why they're like so bad right now. So let's get on to that. Okay, let's talk about how he matches up with other fighters and the entire reason I made this video. Every character in Slene's class is just him but better. And it's sad. If you want a frontline, pick Rocket. He does more... He doesn't do more... Well, he does more damage. Yeah, he does. Because his abilities aren't on a 10-second cooldown. His M2 isn't on a 10-second cooldown. And his Q isn't on like a 7 or 8-second cooldown. He just does more damage. And he does more area damage, which I think is like really good, since Slene is just like a front... Like, Slene is just a single target burst character. But if you want to play a single target burst character, just play Scythe. They have old Slene Q on a 2-second cooldown. I mean, old Slene M2 on a 2-second cooldown with a stun instead of a root. It does 40 damage. Roots. It can be used all the way across the map. And it's on a 2-second cooldown. E can be used for 60 damage. So it's better for taking down hyper lasers that are standing still than even Q and M2 together are. She doesn't have to stand still for it either. She gets knocked back, so it mixes up her movement. Like, if you want to play Slene right now, just take the time to learn Scythe instead, because she's just so much better than Slene at what she does. She has better movement with E and Q in her Scythe form. She has better burst damage with Q and E in her rifle form. Like, she's just better than Slingshot in every single way. If you want to learn a character, I'd recommend just learning Scythe right now. Just invest in Scythe stocks because she's like just a better Slene. She's literally just a better Slene right now. If you want to play Slene as a flanker, because the biggest thing about Slene is his versatility, right? But when everybody does what he does but better, why not just pick the other characters? Especially since ult charge goes between characters in this game. There's no reason not to play Slene. There's really not. There's like no excuse for playing Slene. Because if you want to play him as a flanker, why wouldn't you just pick the character that has anti-heal on flank, that takes away support's abilities to support their like tanks and shit? Why wouldn't you just... And he's just better. He's genuinely just better. Like, his M1 does more damage if you hit even like 2 of the shots, I'm pretty sure. It takes less time to charge up, if I remember correctly. Like, why wouldn't you just play Shuri if you're trying to play a flanker? He takes a little bit more skill than Slane, sure, but like, if you just invest a little bit more time into him, it's not that difficult. If you want movement, play fucking Scythe. If you want more frontline damage, play Rocket. If you want more mid to backline damage, then just play Hyper. And the thing that really gets me here is that Hyper has been buffed time after time after time again, even though he's like one of the best characters in the game. He's buffed him like 5 times. I'm pretty sure he can shoot through walls now with his M2, which I don't even know why that's a thing. Don't get me started on that. And then Slanes just get hitting nerf every single day. Like, it's been like 5 nerfs. Nerf to his M2. 2 nerfs to his M2, actually. Nerf to his E. Let's nerf his passive twice. And then the icing on the cake was a little bit ago. They made it so he just falls out of the sky like a baby bird whenever he gets stunned. Just why? Why did he need that? He didn't really need that. It makes sense thematically, and if you did that before all these 5 nerfs came out, I'd be like, sure, yeah, that makes sense. But you did it right after it, and you gave him nothing in return. He doesn't have anything. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Oh, I'm getting emotional again. I need to stop. I'm too tired for this. Anyways, yeah, no, but he, like every character in his class, it is just better than him at everything. Hyper Laser hard counters him. If they have a semi-decent Hyper Laser on their team, you're not gonna get any value because he just snipes you out of the fucking air. Scythe can hard counter you with their rifle Q. You stand still for 2 seconds while using your abilities, so you can't get any of your burst on her. That also means that you can't get any of your whatever the fuck it's called. You can't get any of your haste on her either, because your haste is strictly tied to your abilities, which you can't use on Scythe unless you want to get bursted to hell and back. Which also means that you're at either a constant negative 25% slow with this M1, just constantly shooting her, so it makes you easier to hit, or you're at a minus 5% slow, which still makes you easy to hit. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, if you're getting punished for, why would you get punished for using your abilities? Ugh, it's so annoying. And then Rocket can E you 3 times in the face, and he takes away a quarter of your health. A little bit more than a quarter, actually. It's like almost, what, 30% of your health? Because you have 150, it almost does 40. Yeah, it's about a quarter of your health, I lied. But fucking Medkit M2, if you're in the air, Medkit M2 does 36 damage and slows you 50%, which is, it's on a shorter cooldown than Selene M2. It does more damage than Selene M2, and it has the same exact slow as Selene M2, if not more. I can't really remember right now. I think it does the exact same slow as Selene M2 if you hit every shot, and it's easy to hit after each shot on a Selene that's just standing in the air, like, fucking around, like... It's like even the support characters outclass him at this point, because, like, there's no reason for it. There's simply no reason. Hell, Shuri can easily like hit you with his shurikens if you're just in the air for a short amount of time. I will say that Shuri is one of the more even matchups for Selene in the ranged category, but it's like, come on, when every single matchup in the ranged category is even or losing for Selene, it gets kind of annoying at some point, right? The only characters that he really does good against are, what, sometimes Skateboard, sometimes Biographed, not Sport at all. Because Biographed, since Selene has to stay on this floor for like 7 seconds straight, he can just burst Selene shot down so easily, just maul you if they're like semi-competent. A Sword, new changes just make you fucking die to him. Katana takes you out of the air, and then you're taken out of the air for 7 seconds. You don't even have as much haste anymore, so you can't get out of there easily. Banhammer is the only one really hard countered by Selene at this point, and even then he now spikes you to the ground with his Q if he lands it correctly, which, yeah, you're stunned in the air for every second that you use an ability, so yeah, he's gonna take you down now. He now has an ability that can take you out of the air. It doesn't make sense. Why can Banhammer, a tank that's supposed to focus on literally doing the entire, like, killing people in a group, why is he able to take down Selene? Like, they took... And then, who's the other fucking, like, Sword, Skate, Katana, Biographed, fucking Banhammer, they can all take down Selene now. So he doesn't even do that well against melees anymore, as long as they know how to play against him. Hell, the only support class that really gets screwed over by Selene is Subspace and Boombox, but Boombox sucks ass right now. And Subspace isn't even that hard counter, it's more of an even matchup, because Subspace is just annoying to go against, especially when M2 can take you down from your fucking hover. It can... because you're still in the air, right? But even if you're in the air, M2 can still hit you because they can land it directly on you. And if you're in the air for 2 seconds trying to get off your only damaging abilities, they can just M2 you, and then you're brought down to the ground, they Q you, they use every single ability on you, and they can get out with E, and you can't hit them that well because they're fucking invisible. And you have to guess where they are. Like... It's more of an even matchup for Subspace than you'd think, so the only person he really hard counters is Boombox. But even then, Boombox sucks ass already, so it doesn't matter. Like, it just genuinely doesn't matter. Like, Selene genuinely needs some changes. Yeah, like, oh my god. Yeah, I'm getting up in my feels again. Yeah, but yeah, that's it. I said my part. Hopefully this video like somewhat convinces you that Slain needs changes, because if it doesn't, then I don't know what will. Because every time I've seen Slain get a nerf, everybody in the community cheers. Which I get that he's annoying, and I get that people have PTSD from 90 damage M2 Q combo from a year ago. And I get people liked Skateboard, and that he was like the one character that didn't get hit by Skateboard. But like, come on, guys. Like, come on. Every time Hyper Laser, one of the best characters in the game, gets a buff, everybody cheers. And then the single second he gets a nerf, people are like, ooh, is this okay? Like, the second he got a nerf to his passive, where it didn't do as much damage, people were like, oh my god, this is gonna ruin him. Even though it barely affected him at all, because he really didn't need it in the first place. I don't know. Oh my god. Yeah, but it's like, I just think it's weird. I just think it's weird. Yeah, but hopefully people stop hating on Slain soon. This has been my TED Talk. Thanks for watching, I guess. It's 2 AM. I'm gonna go edit this video now. I hope you guys have a great day. I hope this was like either good background noise or something. Yeah, but that's about it. That's about all I wanted to say. Thanks for watching. And hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.